Good morning. I'm going to invite all my panelists, my colleagues on stage, and as they come up, I'll introduce myself. So a lot of you know me, but a lot of you I don't know, actually. So I'm Sarah Liesenclem. I work with CCEDNet in Manitoba. And I'm, in the spirit of a lot of what we've been doing this morning, where I come from, I'm a bit of a traveler. I've moved around Canada. I grew up in Treaty 8 territory in Fort McMurray. If you ever want to learn about what it is to grow up in Fort McMurray, I'm your chance. Every time I say that, people go, I didn't know anyone grew up there. We do, and we leave, usually. And then I settled in Treaty 1 territory in beautiful Winnipeg. It's a meeting place of many different nations, and today it's a meeting place of many people from across the world, and it's been my deep pleasure and honor to work there. I support the Manitoba Network. If you haven't heard of us, we're a regional network of CCEDNet that's had a lot of strength and a lot of collective power over time, and it's a real honor to learn from them. And in the next few months, I'm also taking on a role to support regional networks developing across Canada as part of this whole social innovation strategy stuff that's starting to happen. So I think that's why I'm on stage today, as well as being one of the few CCEDNet folks who doesn't mind being on stage. So here I am. And I'm really quite honored to be here, and to be honest, nervous, because this is a tremendous group of people. Some of whom I've known a while, and some of whom I'm just meeting, but all of whom have great experience and roles to play in our current moment. So I'll just quickly tell you their names and organizations. We're not going to read their bios. You can find that on SCED or on the ECONOUS website. So directly to my left is Jocelyn Formsma with the, I almost did it. She said, just say all of the letters, which is good because I'm Ukrainian and we do that too. So, so Jocelyn is with the National Association of Friendship Centers. Next to her is Sarah Lyons with the Community Foundations of Canada. Victor Beausoleil with CCEDNet, which is social economy through social innovation. Is that right? Almost? Almost, shoot. Social inclusion. Oh, dang, I was trying to do it from memory. And Beatrice with the Chantier de l'économie sociale. And so we're going to talk today about social innovation and social finance. And to just get started, I wanted to do a quick just poll of the room. So raise your hand if right now you would describe yourself as a social innovator. There's a few like cautious hands, I think. There's a few. That's great. That's good. I think that's wonderful, and it's a good way to start. So in Manitoba, as we start integrating this language, we're finding very quickly that especially for those of us that are community developers, maybe more than we are entrepreneurs, in that blend that we all find ourselves in community economic development, we don't use that language that much, and we're still trying to find ourselves. So I wanted to start there and just give each of the panelists a minute to introduce themselves and say a bit about how they come to be part of this. And I'm going to put my headset on because I, unfortunately, am not bilingual either. So I'll just go in order. So I'll start with Jocelyn.
Thank you. Wache miswe, shwebenish nishnakasun, skri nitoschin, maika nototem. I'm originally from Northern Ontario. My family's from Moose Cree First Nation. I grew up in Chapleau, Timmins, Moosonee, and have been living in Ottawa for the last year, but before that, for 10 years. I'd now make my home in Ottawa. Very proud to be the executive director of the National Association of Friendship Centers. And for those of you who don't know, Friendship Centers are essentially community organizations that offer a wide range of programs, services. They're civil society organizations for urban Indigenous peoples. And by urban, we mean just, you know, is Kapuskasing really urban? I mean, like, you know, it's just, you know, off reserve, outside the north, Inuit land claims, or outside of Métis settlements. We provide a wide range of a hub for communities living in urban settings.
Sarah, go for it.
Hello, my name is Sarah Lyons, and I'm a staff person with Community Foundations of Canada. Bonjour, je m'appelle Sarah Lyon, je travaille pour Fondation Communautaire du Canada. I'm going to speak in English, but if anyone wants to chat in French after, I'd be really happy to do that. I live in Mohawk territory known as Montreal, and I'm here on behalf of Community Foundations of Canada. Community Foundations of Canada is the pan-Canadian network of community foundations, of which there are nearly 200 across the country. So something that's unique about us as a network and a movement is that, yes, we're in all the big cities, but we're also in many of the smaller communities. And we've kind of reached a point in our evolution where we do have a lot of an interesting balance between being locally led, building local assets and local connection and knowledge, but also a really compelling and active pan-Canadian conversation and network between organizations.
Go ahead.
My name is Victor Beausoleil. Victor is a Latin word, it means conqueror. My middle name is Emmanuel. Emmanuel is a Hebraic word, it means God is with us. And Beausoleil is a French word. My parents are from St. Lucia, it's Creole. It means beautiful sun. I love to pronounce my name in that way, specifically because I believe names have power. I am a husband, father, author, and currently the co-founder of CCEDNet, Social Economy Through Social Inclusion, which is a coalition predicated on creating greater inclusion, diversity, equity, and access in the social finance, social economy, community economic development, social purchasing, community bond, all these ecosystems that a lot of time require diversity and require to mitigate groupthink, but sometimes aren't as diverse as they could be. So we've been lending a voice, contributing where we can, and really trying to focus on intergenerational collaboration, trying to see how we can learn from our elders and engage to better our economy.
Hi, my name is Beatrice, and I'm going to be speaking in French. You've been warned. Bonjour, moi c'est Beatrice Alain, je suis directrice générale du chantier de l'économie sociale. Le chantier est une organisation qui concerte des réseaux sectoriels, des réseaux territoriaux, des mouvements sociaux et des structures de soutien pour, ensemble, promouvoir et développer l'économie sociale au Québec.
So I'll stick with you, Beatrice, and start. We're going to just start with a very broad question. How would you describe what is social innovation and social finance?
J'avais préparé ma réponse parce que au Québec, ça fait plusieurs années que le Réseau québécois de l'innovation sociale a émis une définition de ce que c'est de l'innovation sociale. Puis je ne sais pas combien de temps, en tout cas, je vais lire la définition, puis après ça, j'aurai 2 commentaires. La définition du RQIS, c'est l'innovation sociale, c'est toute approche, pratique, intervention ou encore produit ou service novateur ayant trouvé preneur au niveau des institutions, des organisations ou des communautés et dont la mise en œuvre résout un problème, répond à un besoin ou à une aspiration. La première chose que je veux souligner de ça, c'est qu'une innovation sociale, ce n'est pas une bonne idée ou chose en soi, c'est quelque chose qui a trouvé preneur, qui a été approprié par les gens. Un des exemples que je donne des fois, c'est l'invention du savon, ça ne change rien. C'est le fait que les gens ont commencé à se laver les mains qui a sauvé des vies. Donc, c'est vraiment dans la pratique, le fait que tout le monde le savait et le fait qu'il y avait une pression sociale pour se laver les mains qui change la différence. Ça, c'est des pratiques sociales. Donc, ça ne sert à rien d'avoir une bonne idée si elle n'est pas mise en œuvre. L'autre, c'est... et donc, pour revenir sur est-ce qu'on est un innovateur social, j'avoue que moi, je n'aurais pas dit que je suis une innovatrice sociale, mais je me sens interpellée par des processus d'innovation sociale parce qu'on travaille à concerter des réseaux. Et parce qu'on échange des meilleures pratiques et qu'on les met en œuvre, on va contribuer à un changement systémique de pratiques, et ça, c'est de l'innovation sociale. Donc, je ne pense pas que c'est des individus qui changent les choses, je pense que c'est le collectif. C'est ça. Donc, ça, en tout cas, ça, c'est la vision depuis le Québec, puis je passe mon temps, fait que c'est ça. J'ai d'autres choses à dire. Ça va venir plus tard.
Thanks, Beatrice. Does anyone want to add to that, to build on it, to counter it, to speak to how it makes sense to you?
Sure. So at a young age, I was able to travel a lot predicated on my ability to elocute and articulate myself. I've traveled to Prague, throughout Africa, throughout the States, and when I'm asked a question around social innovation, I've noticed something interesting. When you go to the East, social innovation is usually about doing more with less. And in the Western world, social innovation is usually about doing more with more. Neither one is good or bad, but I've just noticed that difference. And I think there's something very dysfunctional about how we organize our economic relationships as people. I think there's something even more dysfunctional about how we engage with markets. And I think there's something very unsustainable about how we currently consume. And when you build with millennials or Gen Zers, it's clear that young people are putting pressure on adult allies to find unique and interesting ways to solve problems. My definition of social innovation is usually around intergenerational collaboration, because I learn a lot from my elders or folks older than me. I have like 3 or 4 mentors in the room right now that have edified me and built my capacity. And when I think of social innovation, I think of organizing relationships, talents, abilities, strengths within an ecosystem, solving bigger problems with less resources in a better way than done before. And that's kind of my general answer nowadays. Yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
That's very
Actually,
helpful.
you know what? You asked 2 questions, social finance as well.
Sure.
In terms of social finance, it's clear to me, I'm predicated on the fact that there's so much tribalism sometimes and partisanship in Canada or just everywhere, that social finance makes sense. And the reason why it makes sense is because it provides a social dividend and also an economic return, which is really important because in a partisan, like when you look at the left, the right, and the center, a lot of times folks that are more right-leaning have this premise that when you provide resources in a charitable way, it should usually be done through a church, and it can't really be a socialistic model of just giving to underserved, marginalized communities to build up economies. And social finance creates a dynamic where when I build with my uncles, because I have uncles that are very conservative, or if because they're in the States, very Republican almost, and then I have uncles and aunties that are very left-leaning, social finance usually makes sense to everyone because it's so balanced. There's a social dividend and there's an economic return. So it's not just throwing money at a problem and hoping it's solved. There's actually some reciprocity in terms of how that money is managed, stewarded, and cultivated.
Thanks. Either of you want to go ahead? Any other thoughts to add on?
Maybe just jump in on both things. You know, for me, social finance is probably the entry point, at least for the foundation sector, you know, into this conversation, because of course foundations are asset owners. They're piles of money, you know, that are intended to do good. And so one of our most interesting questions over the last decade plus has been, you know, as organizations that accumulate money and in a given year and a given period of time only spend some of it, what do you do with those assets that is aligned with your mission and that is a force for good? And, you know, people have rightly asked the question, you know, if you're spending a few % a year and investing the rest in, for example, harmful industries, you know, are you a net force for good? And so the foundation sector, for the last decade plus, has really gotten serious about thinking about what do we do with those assets at macro levels in terms of the industries we might be invested in the stock market, but also at the smaller level. How are we making capital available in the form of loans or investments to community organizations, social enterprises, et cetera? So that's kind of our entry point into this conversation.
I might just jump in and say that I think that's really interesting. For a lot of us that have done some of this work over the past decade or so, it was sort of an interesting thing that happened to see this strategy be developed as social innovation and social finance, because I actually think what you just described is a great example of social innovation as the community foundation sector thinks about its own set of systems that it's involved in and that so many of us interact with, that slow shift to thinking about yourselves as investors, not just funders, is actually a systemic social innovation that's happening in our sector. So I think for some of the folks that I talk to, that social finance piece is one of the tools of social innovation, which is a bit of a broader concept maybe. So just throwing it in there because I'm so excited to be on stage with these people. Jocelyn, you go ahead.
So one of the reasons why I wanted my colleagues to go first, because I wanted to know what social innovation, social finance was. I would say I'm new to this space, and I'm still learning the words, and I'm still figuring out what they mean, and I think that's probably a lot of people are doing that too. But when I hear about people, what they're doing and using these words, when we focus on what they're actually doing, I'm like, oh, we do that as friendship centers and as Indigenous communities. And not only that, we've been doing that for a very, very long time. So it clicks when you start telling the stories about what people are actually doing. So the words kind of interchange, they mean slightly different things, but when I break it down as to what we actually do, I'll give maybe 2 examples, maybe 3 if I don't get cut off. So this summer, we had our 48th annual general meeting for the National Association of Friendship Centers in Lethbridge, Alberta, at the Sikokitoki Friendship Center, and it was their 50th anniversary, just to give a sense of how long some of our friendship centers have been around. And part of our youth forum, we went to the Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump, and if I can think about social innovation and social economy, and I think about how the Cree used to hunt buffalo, I think that's a perfect example, right? It's a community coming together, everybody's got a bit of a different skill, different role, and to create a situation where, like, okay, if you just thought about it, like not knowing anything, how would you kill a buffalo, right? Without any tools, without any weapons, how would you kill a buffalo? Not, let alone an entire herd of buffalo, right? You would need a lot of people, and so not only that, like the event became a ceremony, it became a time of year, and it became like a very important time for that community to come together and providing for not just one family or not just one person, but for an entire, First Nation, the community. And they also became trade items that they could trade with other communities in and around the area. So I thought of that as like a really good example. More contemporary, and I think people are doing it today. This is the fall season, and I know a lot of people from back home are preparing to go out on a moose hunt, or the geese are flying north now and are preparing to go on a goose hunt. And again, it's a time for family. People that go out, when they bring it back, they're not just serving their own family and generating the wealth for themselves. It is very much a very ingrained custom that you share what you get. And if another family wasn't able to get a moose, then you share what you have with that family, making sure that the elders get some of that traditional foods, and making sure now more and more what they're doing is engaging the young people in these moose camps so that there's that transition of knowledge, and the young people are able to participate and not just the harvesting, but also working with the hides, working with the meat, and creating things from the bones and the teeth and those kinds of things. And then just lastly, quickly, I was invited to a potlatch in BC where I don't know much, and I'm going to go there to learn. But from what little I do know is that the potlatch itself is not about what you can accumulate, but what it is that you can give away. So what you're getting is not something that you keep for yourself, but it's you have these times where you're giving those things away. And so when I'm thinking about social innovation, social enterprise, I'm thinking about how people have constantly had to adapt over time to new experiences, new realities, but keeping those core principles of whatever we get, we make sure that it's not just for our benefit, but the whole community benefits.
Thank you. This is great. I'm also kind of learning as we go, which is wonderful. I think what I'd like to do is just combine the next 2 questions, looking at the time. And so the next 2 questions were about the more sort of, maybe what some of you really came for, is to hear more about this program that's been announced, that's in development and slowly trickling out there into the world, the Investment Readiness Program, which is the first sort of big initiative of the federal government's social innovation and social finance strategy. We're all sort of playing different roles in that, I think. So I think our first question, and we'll combine it with the second, is what's coming in terms of opportunities with this program? And then kind of maybe in light of that or additional to that, what can we do to move this strategy forward or move this agenda of social innovation forward? And I'll throw it open. Does anyone want to start?
Okay, I'll start that one. So the Investment Readiness Program is, what I think of as the leading edge of the social finance sort of fund and strategy that the federal government announced over the last 12, 18 months. And, if I can really oversimplify, it's a bit of a tilling of the ground across the country, a stirring up of interest and energy and readiness, hence the name, around social enterprise. And so concretely, what's coming over the next number of months and over the next 18 months is a pretty significant packet of resources and learning opportunities in the field of social enterprise. And, we didn't define social enterprise, in our first round, or no, we did, but anyway, so, really what we're looking at is organizations of all corporate forms, so they can be charities, they can be not-for-profits, co-ops, for-profits, that both earn revenue, so make money, and do good. And, we can have a long conversation about where that good comes from. Is it in what's produced? Is it in who does it? Is it in how they do it? Is it in where the revenues go? But it's really all of those things for the purpose of this program. And what's coming with leadership from a number of organizations, including Community Foundations of Canada, is the availability of cash resources to seed, advance, and make more investment-ready social enterprises at the grassroots level in community across the country. And so, just to keep building on being specific, there will be, starting in approximately, for us at least, so there's a few organizations that are going to be making this money available. There will be packets of money, I'll call them grants for this purpose, for individual organizations to go out and access what they need. So there's a sort of self-assessment, and there will be support available around that to seed or advance their own social enterprise, either concept, development, or progress. So it's really going to range all the way back from what I've been calling kind of glint in the eye. We as an organization have an idea for a social enterprise, all the way up to, we exist, we already generate revenue, we're ready to go to a next stage. And so, a couple of things to emphasize. One, that range. So one of the things that's going to be, I'll use the word innovative, in this opportunity is that we are not simply trying to fuel the existing social enterprise landscape, just the folks who put up their hand and said, I have a social enterprise, or, the incumbent community around social enterprise. We are also trying to access a broader community that maybe doesn't already see themselves in social enterprise. And the second thing I would say is that, this program is different than some things you may have seen before, in the sense that, yes, there will be, and there are organizations that have been tapped to do, learning programs and webinars and training sessions, and all of that is going to be fantastic. But there's also the availability of resources for organization-led decision-making, accessing of services, training, pieces of work, such as through consultants, et cetera. So there's a kind of organizational leadership and choice, and a availability of resources towards what you and what people in community think they need and want to participate in this landscape.
Thank you. Does anyone want to jump in either to add more about what this program is going to look like, or to take on that next one of, what beyond this do we need to do to move this agenda forward?
Ben, je peux peut-être ajouter, pour le Québec en particulier, l'argent va passer, donc l'argent que Sarah décrivait qui allait aux organisations à vocation sociale va passer par le chantier, mais le chantier voulait coordonner une démarche avec une série d'acteurs. Donc, dans les faits, on y travaille depuis tout l'été, mais avant d'avoir eu l'aval des autres réseaux et acteurs importants en matière d'innovation sociale au Québec, notamment le milieu communautaire, le milieu coop, les organisations de développement local. Donc, c'est pas encore publié puis rendu public, mais ça va venir sous peu. Ce dont je voulais parler plus aujourd'hui, c'est qu'est-ce qu'on a besoin de faire pour continuer dans ces efforts-là, puis d'élargir un peu les mesures, les ressources en faveur d'innovation sociale au Canada. D'abord, je pense au Québec, c'est particulier parce qu'on a un écosystème, on parle d'économie sociale plus que d'innovation sociale. Je pense qu'il faut se rendre à l'évidence qu'à l'échelle du Canada, ça va être innovation sociale, le terme peut-être, en tout cas actuellement avec le gouvernement du Canada qui rallie le plus de partenaires. C'est important là-dedans qu'on situe l'importance des communautés puis de l'effort collectif, que ça ne soit pas juste vu comme des individus avec des bonnes idées. Je pense que c'est important parce que le gouvernement a engagé des ressources. On a commencé à voir une concertation d'acteurs canadiens. On a appris à se découvrir, à voir les choses qu'on avait en commun, puis à réfléchir ensemble sur qu'est-ce qu'on avait besoin pour travailler plus, mieux et échanger des meilleures pratiques et faire avancer les choses sur le terrain dans nos provinces respectives et à l'échelle nationale. Et je pense que cette discussion-là, elle devrait continuer. Et je pense surtout qu'on s'enligne vers, parce que la stratégie, c'est innovation sociale et finances sociales. Donc, si le gouvernement actuel est réélu, il s'est engagé à mettre certaines mesures. Il faut qu'on soit là, puis il faut qu'on se parle le terrain, que ce ne soit pas le gouvernement qui mette des mesures en fonction de leurs idéaux, mais en fonction des besoins des acteurs sur le terrain. Donc, il faut qu'on se parle, puis qu'on se mette d'accord sur ce qu'on veut demander, puis qu'on soit ambitieux dans ça. Si le gouvernement actuel n'est pas réélu, je pense qu'il y a une opportunité de montrer comment des communautés qui se prennent en charge puis qui répondent à des besoins, ce n'est pas un enjeu partisan. C'est une réalité que tout gouvernement devrait soutenir et de maintenir les mesures ou les engagements pris par le gouvernement. Et finalement, sur la partie de finances sociales, je pense qu'il y a une discussion aussi à faire pour s'assurer, comme on a dit ici, que ces mesures-là soient inclusives et répondent à des besoins, ne dédoublent pas ce qui est déjà là pour le fragiliser, mais vraiment avancent les pratiques, permettent le développement de pratiques qui ne verraient pas le jour autrement.
Thanks, Beatrice. And I think I'll just bounce off of that I'm really pleased that a big part of this program is not just the granting, but is the set of tools. That's how CCEDNet's involved, is to do ecosystem development in regions. I think I'd encourage all of us that are part of the program and all of us that might be taking advantage of it to know that Readiness doesn't just talk about the enterprises. It's about the actual soil itself that those might grow in. And so there's also opportunity within this to really develop that set of tools, that ecosystem, and the ability for us to connect and become more of a collective effort across Canada. And that's a big part of this program as well. Jocelyn or Victor, do you want to jump in?
Please go ahead, sis.
I'll just add quickly just a little bit more practical kind of information on the program. There's three sort of areas that the program is funding. It's the ecosystem, people who are involved with the ecosystem doing specific things. There are expert service providers that are also got funded to do certain things. Some of it's developing tools, some of it's developing or producing knowledge and sharing that knowledge. And then the third piece, which is what we're connected with, the Friendship Centers, the NACA, the Aboriginal Capital Corporations Association, Community Foundations of Canada, Chantier, and Canadian Women's Foundation. We're actually going to be funding, we're getting the money to fund organizations. For us, we're only able to fund Friendship Centers, but we're collaborating with the other funding partners to ensure that other Indigenous organizations or women's organizations, we're just working together to try to make sure that we're covering off as many different types of community or the SPOs, the social purpose organization, are covered as much as possible. And then I think there's also this other component, which is sort of this, I know some of the ESDC folks are here and they're listening intently as to what I'm saying and whether I'm getting it right or wrong, but that there's the other piece of it, which is the social finance fund. And so my understanding is that's still in development, but a lot of what we're trying to do with the investment and readiness piece is ideally that by the end of it, there's going to be more organizations ready to be able to access this social finance fund, and hopefully have these big ideas that are going to be funded. And we're pushing the government really hard on what we envision for that social finance fund, and we think that there's a lot of opportunity here to do something different, do something unique, and do something that's really going to matter at the ground level.
Victor.
Sure. I'd actually like to stand up for this section. So if you can all trust me for literally 30 seconds. 30 seconds. I'm just going to ask a very basic question, and I would just want you to raise your hand. So all the black people in the room, just raise your hand for me. Wonderful. All the white people in the room, raise your hand for me, please. Wonderful. Okay, all the purple people. Pink? Any blues? What I just described is one of the challenges that we have in this sector, in this space. Black is a misnomer. My shoes are black. I happen to be of African descent. Anyone that's familiar with the term misnomer, it's an incorrect label. White is a misnomer. My brother, your shirt is white. You're actually more peachish, like a beautiful tone. If you understand melanin, you understand that we all have a varying relationship with the sun. We receive vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin D, but it creates a dynamic where I can call Mike my brother because there isn't a difference. Make sense? One of the challenges that we face is when you look at these misnomers, it creates that division that's consistent. And when we look at terms like social finance and social innovation, we have to understand that sometimes with these terms, we have to unpack our own lack of maturation or sociological maturity. I met my sister Robin this morning. I'm not sure where she is right now. She reminds me of my Auntie Joanna. The way she came up, very similar spirit and energy. I'm bringing that up, and I'll sit down right now, and I appreciate you indulging me for a second. The reason why I bring that up is because when you look at the IRP program, the model that's being developed, we're trying as a collective to solve unique problems in unique times. And one of the challenges that we face currently is, one, the monetization of social good, two, tribalism, partnership, and a lack of intergenerational collaboration. But most important, actually, you know what, I'll tell a quick story very fast. Who's ever seen the movie World War Z with Brad Pitt? Wonderful, okay, we have some hands. World War Z, great movie, it's a zombie movie, imagine. In this movie, who remembers the scene about the 10th man? No? Okay, awesome. You'll all remember it that saw the movie. There's a scene where the whole world is going through a zombie apocalypse, and Brad Pitt travels all the way to Israel to meet with a Mossad high-ranking official. And he asks him a very simple question. How did y'all prepare? Everywhere else got demolished by these zombies, but Israel was able to build walls and protect itself very fast. And the high-ranking Mossad officer said, well, we didn't see Hitler coming back in the day. We didn't see other catastrophes coming in our culture and our community over the last many decades. So we developed a model or framework called the 10th man, which is very simple. When everyone agrees in a room, it's one person's job to adamantly rebut, refute, and fight against everyone else. And that 10th man model is what created a dynamic where they were able to look at things in a very different way. There was intent behind the impact. So what I ask many of you today, as you're going into this season of potential resources from the feds, potential resources from sharing and collaborating with each other, when you're in spaces and rooms that may not reflect the diversity, inclusion, equity, access of Canada, the Canada that we love, be the 10th man, please. Thank you.
Oh, wow. I love that for about a dozen reasons, but especially because I love zombie movies. So, no, especially because it's such an important message. Thank you. And so we're coming to the end of our time. It's probably clear to you that, I suspect it is anyway, that this is really a space of emergence. This is not a settled thing yet. And I think for all the partners that are involved in the IRP, which is the most concrete piece, it's still a space of emergence. Never mind that whole big strategy. And so if this is maybe the first time you're dipping your toes into this and you feel a little like, I don't totally understand what it's about, you're not alone. I think even for those of us that have been part of the conversation really fluently for a while, it still feels like that. I would really encourage you, I think all of us were involved in different ways, and there's a lot of people here who are involved in different ways in the development of inclusive innovation. It was a report created by the steering committee that the feds put together, a co-creation working group to develop recommendations for this kind of work. And so that report's there. I think it's going to provide a lot of the guidance for how things unfold going forward. So if you want to find out more, it's a great tool to take a look at that. Another couple ways that you can kind of, again, dip your toes in a bit deeper is to, I think we'd all be open, come talk to any of us. In that harvesting section outside the room, you can add questions that you might have brought up, and those will be open for all of us to see, which is great.
Sarah, can I just to jump in, indeed, you're hitting the nail on the head. This is really it's all a work in progress, and we're all designing and listening and learning. And we actually have a booth here. And so we would really invite you, it's as much a listening as it is a telling booth. And so someone from our team will be there throughout the day today. Drop by, talk to us both to learn more about where we've gotten to so far in our thinking, but also to tell us, what do you think, what do you need? What's your wisdom for us?
Thank you. And then the last way that I think you could do that is tomorrow, the design thinking session that's in the morning, it's going to include lots and lots of conversations, and one of them will be hosted by our partners at ESDC, Employment and Social Development Canada, the lead department involved in this work at the federal level. So they're going to host a session. I'll be there with them to lend a hand as well. So that's one of the options. You'll have lots of others, but if this is something you're really keen on, might be a good way to learn more. And I know that we're running behind time, but I always feel like it's really important. This is something I've learned from the Indigenous communities that I get the honor to work with, is to make sure we close as we opened with a word from everybody. So literally a word. We do this in our staff team sometimes. Thinking about this whole process, the IRP or the social innovation strategy, if you can, use one word about how you feel about it right now. It doesn't have to be a feeling word. You're not going to explain it, so you can be as weird as you want to be about it. A word to describe how you're feeling right now about this process would go this way. Or whoever's ready, maybe. One word.
It's gonna take longer for me to think of one word than to just say many, I think. If it's what we're doing is it's almost like a remembering for us. It's a reframing of what we've done for a very, very long time, and using a new word to describe it.
Thanks.
Moi, mon mot, il n'est pas traductible en anglais, mais c'est concertation. Je pense que c'est essentiel dans les communautés, puis entre nous, à l'échelle canadienne, de se concerter sur cet enjeu-là.
Leadership, I think it's a tremendous act of leadership. Indigenous people, people of African descent, all people have always had money pools, susus, cooperatives, models in which they organize economically, and this is a bold act of leadership.
I think that I feel really excited by the challenges that we've been given, even on this panel, particularly by Victor, and I'm just excited to lean into those challenges.
And for my last word, I'm really just being a pushy moderator right now and taking my time. Let's do that poll again. So now you've heard a bunch of ideas, examples, thoughts about what this whole thing is about. Right now, would you describe yourself as a social innovator? Raise your hand. I think there's a few more. Maybe we'll ask again in the last plenary or something to see. Okay, what a tremendous group of leaders. Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here. Thanks to all of you.